Hi, everybody. Sean McCracken, news editor for Hotel News Now, here with Matthew Burke, regional director for Pacific, Japan, and South Asia for STR. Matthew, did I get that correct?
You did. Great to be with you, Sean. Awesome to be filling the big shoes of Jesper, who I know you normally speak to for this session, but he is enjoying some time in London and some family time in Europe at the moment. So shout out to him and hope he's enjoying his time off with his family.
I will say it is big shoes to fill because Jesper, in my estimation, might have the best voice in radio. But I will note that for the purposes of this podcast, your accent gives a very good regional flavor.
Thank you for the recovery there, Sean. I was a bit worried, but he is as a singer as well. I do live in envy of his abilities there. So hopefully I can make up in what I say.
So, Matthew, obviously you're based in Australia. What's the broad takeaway for this month for Asia regionally, for your home country, and just for the area you cover?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's probably two things that I would say there is one is kind of, I suppose, a continuation of a theme that I know Jesper brought up with you in a previous edition around, people's expectations versus the reality of what's coming through. And, when we're talking to clients and we're looking at the numbers, I can kind of get a sense of how that has materialized in the sense of people had a set of expectations in terms of what growth might have been. Uh, Growth is still coming through for the majority of the region, but it's not the growth that everyone may have expected it to be. And there's various reasons for why that might be. So I think there's an expectation kind of paradigm in how people feel, whether they're sort of glass half full, glass half empty around it. And we can probably dig into a little bit of the specifics around that. In terms of the numbers themselves, other than China, everyone is reporting year-over-year growth, and
Hmm.
that growth is kind of moderating depending on sort of where you are in that recovery cycle that we're still sort of, the lagging kind of element that we're still talking about sort of 4 years on from the depths of the pandemic. So, by and large, everyone's in a pretty stable, solid position. But obviously, like everything, there are markets that are punching well above their weight. And, we can talk about Japan specifically, uh, then other markets that are sort of, very stable, like Australia, uh, that, it's still doing well, but it's not, the growth is not as, not what it used to be as
Hmm.
it's moderated and normalized.
So is that the impression we should take away right now is it's kind of slow and steady in Australia, and it's obviously gangbusters in Japan then?
Yes, I mean, broadly speaking, it's sort of like there's nothing that's sort of like sexy, but if you need to take money to the bank, there's a lot of, good news there in terms of overall returns. Now, the profitability kind of growth is obviously changing as ADR moderates, but where many mature markets are doing, levels above what they were doing historically or the longer term trend. So, there's good returns there, but is it sort of look over here, there's a double digit growth other than
Hmm.
Japan. You're not really seeing that now. You're sort of seeing, what we'd expect to see in normal
Hmm.
times.
Yeah. And I mean, not every country has the kind of um, currency exchange tailwind that Japan has right now, which is admitted in some ways not a great thing to have.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and we're seeing that play out in Japan now. So if you look at individual markets, those that are more heavily exposed to the international traveler are doing double digit growth, just in June, and also almost year to date, they're in the high teens. Whereas markets that are more domestic orientated, you can't put those sorts of price increases on the general population because you would effectively, price them out of it. So, and you're seeing that if you read any media articles as well, in terms of, different pricing for tourist attractions for you and I versus a local citizen. So,
Hmm.
uh, that obviously is having growing pains in a country that is very supportive of tourism. But like many places, it's just about trying to, find its place. But yeah, the returns are continuing to grow exponentially in Japan,
Hmm.
driven primarily by currency. And it's an interesting thing because previously currency was never a kind of driver of people's decision making
Yeah.
to go, I would really want to go there. It was obviously an element, but it was never a driver. Whereas I think in Japan's case, it's one of the sort of exclusive, uh, just the time and the place that it's happened is that everyone's kind of wanted to see
Yes.
Japan, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it's been the fact that everyone's had such strong inflation in their own country. Where can I kind of look for potentially a yeah, comparable, not much has changed, or Japan then becomes that for whether you're in America, Australia, or even in Europe, into the end. So
I
yeah,
mean,
they're
I think
kind of riding that wave.
that's that's really the thing that I think everyone needs to keep in mind is that you can't have what Japan has right now if there's not that underlying desire, right? Like nobody's everyone wanted to go to Japan. Like that's kind of the takeaway we have, right? And this just happens to be the right moment for a lot of people. But if it's somewhere that doesn't have that inherent draw, then maybe the currency exchange wouldn't be nearly as big of an impact.
Yeah, and I mean they didn't get the benefit of the Olympics, but
Hmm.
hey, maybe this is the tailwinds that they do get instead. So it kind of served its purpose in just a different, slightly format to what might have been imagined all those years ago.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I'm sure that the way they imagined the Olympics going when they were awarded them is not what happened either way.
No,
So,
no.
so what's the investor sentiment in Australia right now? Obviously, I'm on the other side of the world, so I'm a little bit removed from that. But it feels like in a lot of ways, it's much more like the Western markets than some of the other countries you cover. What's the general feel there?
Yeah, I think there's probably two core themes there that have transpired sort of over the last sort of 2 years, I would say. Is one is the appetite of investors who have not typically looked at the hotel sector. There's definitely been investment by others to get a coverage of their portfolio into the hospitality space. It's not
Hmm.
so alternative as it previously might have been.
Yeah,
And then the other is the type of capital that is buying properties has changed just on the degree of essentially, not to get too technical, but the spread of what you can access debt at versus what the capitalization rate of the
yeah,
property is pushing a lot of people, who can't, there's a lot of negative spread for some buyers. And
yeah.
there is a little bit more stuff on the market, but there
Hmm.
isn't a lot of transactions that are actually transpiring, which as an outsider who's not engaged in the individual transactions, and there'd be people who definitely are more well qualified than I, but on the sidelines, I'd say, well, that means there's a bit of a gap between what
Yeah.
the seller is prepared to sell for and what the buyer is prepared to pay for
Hmm.
it. And I think those transactions that have gone through have definitely been a value enhancement sort of methodology that they're applying to that. That fixing the property up, repositioning it, applying a little bit of different operational skill to what might be in the property is kind of their goal to then generate a greater level of return on an ongoing basis.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say for most of our American listeners right now, this is all sounding very familiar. A
Yeah,
pretty similar
yeah,
story.
yeah. I think there's a lot of similarities in my part of the world and yours in terms of how the market's behaving. There's probably some other parts of our lives that are very different at the moment, but
Hmm.
we won't venture there on this particular podcast.
Yeah,
Um,
just something for you to be thankful for, I'm assuming.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, when we drill in this month, is there anything that kind of jumps out at you as abnormal or you interesting performance-wise?
Yeah, I think, and not to sort of make it a very Australian centric talking point, but I think it's a good one for other people to think about. And there was actually a really good article that the analyst team put together around when you lift the hood on average rate, what's actually driving some of the change now in growth. And there was a couple of interesting points grabbing a whole bunch of different markets around it. But you take a market like Sydney that has now got back to where it kind of was in demand level. Occupancy still a little bit behind because of the supply growth that's come. An average rate now has started to moderate on the quieter nights. It's pretty level. But as the market's getting busier, we are still, so when a market sort of tips over that 80% nightly rate, we are then seeing the average rate still produce results. And then equally, when it gets above 90%, which are fewer nights than previously there was, you are seeing really strong average rate, which
Hmm.
largely speaks to that there's an event going on. And when you have an event, like many places are, consumers are more than happy to pay to experience that event to what the going rate might be in that particular market. So I think it's an interesting kind of, as we normalize and it become the pockets of where the growth comes and what's the underlying kind of trend in rate, we're going to see comparable years where there wasn't an event this year
Hmm.
versus last year, and you look at the overall rate and it's gone down, but is that actually the reality of what's going on? So
Yeah.
there isn't sort of we've got to be a little bit more mindful of first impressions aren't the full story.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit underneath that. And then I think another key theme, which is a bit different to what I know in the US, is that we have not seen the group recovery in
Hmm.
this part of the world. Um, but then again, I go to India and they've had a really strong, robust rebound. Domestic market again, really
Yeah.
strong rebound in their group market, which is supporting their midweek occupancy. So it's an interesting kind of dichotomy of what's going on from a segmentation perspective that gives me cause for optimism that if you have segments that are kind of coming off a little bit, there is still others that you would like to think that they are going to continue to improve and grow. So I think that's probably a couple of key themes there. And then the last one is probably, we are still building a lot of rooms or getting to the end of building a lot of rooms in many
Yeah.
markets. And New Zealand is, really feeling that at the moment, where that pinch of all those new rooms, when you've got a fairly kind of subdued demand growth profile, is having a
Hmm.
material impact on their results. So,
Hmm.
uh,
Just to go back,
yeah.
just to go back to ask about the group phenomenon a little bit more.
Mm.
Do you have any insight into what the underlying reasons for that might be? The kind of difference in group recovery? Is there specific headwinds?
Uh, I think there's probably a few reasons. One is obviously just the long lead time that
Hmm.
obviously groups traditionally have. We're probably not as versatile in the types of different get-togethers that you might have, say, in the US, where there's certain
Yeah.
organizations that just don't exist and that congregation of people just doesn't materialize. It is very corporate leaning, or
Hmm.
sport leaning, would be the sort of two main categories, uh, or association kind of within that corporate mix. Uh,
Hmm.
then I think also as well, we haven't quite got the international big big events that the Sydney and Melbourne particularly, if they have one of those a month, that really kind of sets up that particular period of time.
Hmm.
And then I think underneath that, there's some sort of like really small things, but important things where just the school holiday windows have elongated out and they're not uniform, which means that if you're having a national event, you don't want to have it in that particular period of time. And it's bringing like there's fewer weeks you can kind of then get together.
Yeah.
And it's a really small thing, but it actually materially has an impact, particularly in markets that are, more popular for, you know, being strong in the group space, whether it's a
Hmm.
destinational spot or in a capital city, it does have its impact.
Hmm. So you were mentioning, obviously the growing outsized impact of events. I mean, what are some of the events that are moving the needle right now?
Uh, so obviously the music calendar is
Hmm.
returned really strong. I mean, Taylor Swift at the beginning of the year
Yes.
was massive for us. I mean, wasn't
Yeah.
many tour spots here, so it
Yeah.
attracted a lot of people from the region. Coldplay came out late last year and they're back again this year. So they're probably sort of one of the big ones that's coming up. Um, Next year we've got and this is probably a bit foreign to an American audience, but the British and Irish Lions rugby tour coming to Australia,
Hmm.
which is essentially all of the countries coming together to play against Australia. So that brings a huge international market out. But at the same time, we had the FIFA Women's World Cup last year. So we're going into a period now where there
Hmm.
was in some markets some really strong demand. So we're going to see some, a harder comp to match
Yeah.
because of that. There's just a lot of kind of things that domestically tick along and have an event, program. But the big months are February, March, October, November for us down here.
Hmm.
And it's pretty similar in most parts of the regions I look after anyway, in terms of the strength of those periods.
Hmm. So since you brought up sports as part of this, I will
Yes.
mention, and you will be aware at this point that Jesper and I are on a months-long quest to slowly transform this into the H&N STR footy podcast. But the problem is, so both Jesper and I swear our allegiance to the Sydney Swans. Matthew, and I'm going to let the audience know a little bit of how the sausage is made right now. We're recording this at the end of the week. In a few days for us, the Swans will play your beloved Brisbane Lions. But
How did we get the timing? That was so perfect that
it is perfect. But here's the thing: by the time people are able to listen to this, that game will have happened. So
ooh.
I need you to guess what will have happened, so you can talk
Yeah,
confidently.
so to give some more context to that, is Sydney have been on top all year, clear standout. Brisbane, who were in the grand final but lost last year, had a very slow start to the season, but are the form team at the moment, and have raced up the ladder. It is our home game in Brisbane, which is a bit of a fortress traditionally. So a
Mhm.
biased view, but I think Brisbane will get over the line, but it'll be an excellent game on Sunday. So yeah, looking
I
forward to
will
it.
I will point out that in the span that Jesper and I have not been able to record this together, the Swans have looked way worse. So the jinx might be in. It might be working out in your favor, but I hope that I'm
uh,
wrong.
they're they're a very good team.
I'm
So
gonna knock on wood
I just
right
hope,
now.
for your benefit, I hope they haven't peaked too early in the year.
Well,
Um,
that's always the risk in sports, right?
yeah, yeah.
You want to have your winning streak at the end of the year when those wins really matter. But
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
so, anything we missed today? Anything you really wanted to let everybody know about?
No, I think that kind of covers the majority of it. I think, the as I opened up, I think the sentiment overall is pretty decent across the entire Asia Pacific region. There's obviously some
Mhm.
markets that are probably doing it a little bit tougher than others in terms of their recovery. But I think we're very much sort of in the territory now of normalized performance, and the real skill for operators and where they can drive their returns is their ability to understand and make the right decisions and evaluate them. So,
Mhm.
uh, listening to this hopefully goes some way to helping them, helping them maybe.
Yeah.
Uh, but
You know what?
yeah, I think it's good place to be.
You know what? The one last thing I want to ask you, if you've ever thought about before I let you go, is you were talking about how, it's great in Japan, but that's fueled by, a long-term desire for people to go to Japan.
Mm,
I'm
mm.
wondering how much you are considering and potentially factoring in an entire generation that is young today and their burning desire to go to Australia one day because of the Bluey effect. And I say this as I have a 7-year-old son who walks around the house using Australian slang now.
I
Like, have
love
you
it.
guys thought about the
I love
fact
it.
that 2 decades from now, this will have a real impact on tourism?
Yeah, so yeah, I've got a 4 and a 2-year-old, so I am right into Bluey, and I'm
Yeah.
actually one of the rare shows that I'm happy to watch because it is a brilliant
Oh,
show. I
absolutely.
might
I love
add,
it.
did you know it's made in Brisbane?
I am aware of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, any of those sites you'll see the cartoon version of them, but they are actually legitimate sites that exist. And they've just opened like a Bluey house, I think it is.
Hmm.
I don't know, my family's up there. We haven't visited it yet, but maybe on a future edition, I can give you a little bit of a tourist tour of that. But one would hope that we need lots more Americans to come visit. Australia. It's a beautiful country, and it's not that far as everyone might think it is.
Hmm.
Uh,
I mean, it's about as
and
far away as it can get. Like,
yeah, yeah, but it's plenty of Australians do the reverse. So
well, that's the thing.
it's
It's half a
yeah.
day on a plane. You wake up where you want to be. It's not the end of
Well,
the
yeah,
world.
and in 2 years' time, you'll be able to fly Sydney, New York direct.
Hmm.
So the fact that aircraft now whether you want to do that or not, but I think you're getting to the point of it. Uh, it makes it more, point to point is obviously going to just ease that up a little bit. So as more destinations that we can fly direct between our great
Hmm.
countries will hopefully help grow the cross of travel between nations. So there's a few
Hmm.
more Americans than there are Australians. So
Yeah.
we'll benefit. I think we'll benefit more so than you might in return. But yeah,
Hmm. All
yeah.
right. Well, thanks a lot.
May Bluey be the catalyst of it though. Great
Hey,
submission.
I fully believe long term it's going to be the case. You guys you could track the correlation between kids now and a couple decades from now.
I'm gonna
I'm going
make
to
a mental
stake my
note of that one. Yeah, yeah. Here's the Bluey correlation curve in 15 years that was introduced by Sean McCracken. Yeah, perfect.
I'm going to take credit for that. All right. Well, thanks,
Yeah, you
Matthew. I
should.
really appreciate it.
Awesome. Great to speak with you. Have a great day and all the best to everyone out there.
Hi, I'm Isaac Colazo, Vice President of Analytics at STR.
Hi, and I'm Jan Freitag, National Director for Hospitality Analytics for the CoStar Group. Tune in to our new show, Tell Me More, a hospitality data podcast.
It's a podcast on the global hotel industry, its current trends, what we're thinking about, and where the industry's going.
And we like to have fun with the data too. Find us on hotelnewsnow.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe today.
This episode of the Hotel News Now podcast was recorded on July 18th, 2024, 2 days before the Brisbane Lions triumphed over the Sydney Swans 79-77. It was edited by me, Sean McCracken. Visit hotelnewsnow.com for all the latest industry news and hopefully no more whining about the fate of the once dominant Swans.